the New Tech Times, a video magazine for the electronic age. In this edition, cable piracy. If you plug in without paying, you could go to jail. Also, the Whiz Kids, behind the scenes at a high-tech adventure show. Later, a look at a young composer who makes music by computer, and a review of exercise video games. All this and more in this edition of the New Tech Times.
The New Tech Times is brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change. Wausau works. And by the collective voice of the consumer electronics industry. CEG, the Consumer Electronics Group, Electronic Industries Association.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Johnson. This week's New Tech Times is a lighthearted look at the role of electronics in our lives. Television, music, even exercise. But it also raises a serious question about what we're doing to the human psyche. Recent surveys show television set use in America has increased to an average of more than 7 hours a day. Many attribute this to the addition of cable and pay channels to our sets. But not all of us tune in that much. After a recent lecture, one fellow told me he didn't have cable because where he lives, they pay to have the garbage hauled out, not to have it hauled in. When cable was first introduced, broadcasters accused cable operators of piracy, stealing the programs they then sold to subscribers. Now it's the cable folks who are prosecuting pirates. Here's Gary Probst's report.
What you wanna see, it's gotta be something great on TV. What you wanna see, you're gonna find it the way it should be.
Kansas City's cable TV company is trying to promote its service as television worth watching. Many people agree.
We've got sparkle, we've got shine. Fun, fun, fun. It's entertainment for everyone.
The problem for American Cablevision is that a large number of potential customers believe that it's television worth stealing.
American Cablevision. What you wanna see.
There's only supposed to be one active customer. And as you see, there's more than one.
It's quite easy to steal cable TV. People who live in apartment houses can just hook up to the main box. Some people at this building bought the service for a few months, disconnected and reconnected on their own when the cable company stopped sending bills. One of them tipped off the company by complaining about a poor signal, even though it was being stolen. Now there's no signal to complain about. There's no limit to the ingenuity of a cable thief.
One of the more unique ones that we have come across is a gentleman who is apparently in the business of providing service to his neighbors. He ran, this of course would be attached to our port on the pole. He ran coax down the pole, through the yard for a ways where he ran out of the cable that he had, attached it to some antenna lead, and approximately every 20 feet through this hedgerow where he had this run, he installed a telescoping antenna, much like you found on any car, and these were all protruding through the hedge. He then informed his neighbors of the service, who just merely turned their antennas towards the hedge and would receive our American Cablevision services at no charge, or had he been charging them a small fee.
Cable companies throughout the United States claim to lose close to $400 million per year. In Kansas City, American Cablevision claims that $1.5 million of service is being stolen.
Some of the cases, I guess, that come to mind that people are persistent about getting the cable. We have difficulty getting access to some yards because people have staked out Dobermans to the telephone poles to keep us from going back a second or third time. We have been physically asked to leave the premises at gunpoint at one time. We do have a right on our easement, utility easement, to be there, and therefore we are illegal, and we do our best to let the people know that we're going on the property for a check of services. We've had people repeat violations, and we are taking steps against those people now.
When people don't pay for cable, the city also loses money. Companies are franchised, and franchise fees are based on paying subscribers. More than $70,000 a year are not going into the Kansas City municipal budget. That's why the city attorney helped to pass a new tough cable theft ordinance with a potential fine of up to $500 and 180 days in jail.
And certainly the city council is always looking for ways to increase our available sources of income, and it also prevents the cable company from providing other services that we're interested in. If they don't have enough money, it's hard for them to operate the local origination studios and the other things that we're so interested in.
Hello, I'm with Cablevision. We're just checking all the lines in the area. I'm going to need to get in your backyard for just a moment. Okay, sure. I'll keep it. Thank you.
The cable company has crews out scanning the city, trying to find cable pirates. Technicians are going door to door, checking the signal going into homes. If the meter reading doesn't match the company's monthly billing sheet, the cable company will try to talk the people into paying. Well, some refuse and reconnect. They defy the company until they end up in court. Those are the people who may feel the brunt of those new penalties for stealing cable in Kansas City.
I think once the word gets out in the community that if you steal the cable service, that they will prosecute and that the courts will find them guilty, that'll help them out somewhat.
Cable theft is a common problem throughout the United States. San Diego and Jackson, Mississippi are also enforcing tougher new laws.
Why not? What are you in for?
How would I know?
How about you?
Assault.
And you? What are you in for?
I rigged my converter box to steal HBO and Showtime.
You rigged your converter box.
Steal Showtime.
HBO?
What you have just seen is no laughing matter. If you're receiving cable services you're not paying for, Cox Cable has the means to identify you.
Most cities let it slide with a slap in the wrist. One reason is attitude. People are accustomed to free TV. Those who take the service without paying for it don't consider that to be the same as stealing from a store. The people at Cablevision feel that being tough is what they have to do.
It's not our intent to send anyone necessarily to prison for an offense like this. There is a point that because of the lost revenues that we're suffering here, that we need to prosecute, and we'll leave it to the judge to decide the punishment that's needed.
American Cablevision, what you want to see.
In these new tech times, electronic technology not only brings us our entertainment, it's become the subject of our entertainment. Now, manufacturers have always wanted their products prominently displayed in movies and TV. It's a way of selling to you between commercials. Then network TV series started having episodes about technology. Now their whole shows built around electronics. When I was in my teens, CBS brought us real kids with real smarts, the Quiz Kids. Now they're bringing us teenage actors with computers, the Whiz Kids. Here's our report.
Now, down. There. Okay. I think I missed the pattern up. No big deal. We can make it.
Go.
Come on, improvise. Yeah, there. All right. Up.
Watch out for guards.
Up. Go.
These are the Whiz Kids, the main cast for a new kind of adventure television series airing this year on CBS. What's new about this program is that the stories center around the world of computers and other high-tech gadgets. The man who put the show together is executive producer Philip DeGuerre.
The idea of having somebody sit at the computer terminal and hit a few keys and have something happen in the outside world is a lot more fun to me than the idea of let's go jump in the car, let's go screech around four corners, let's do a 12-second car chase, fire off 17 fake bullets, you know what I mean, have a fist fight, and generally serve up another, a batch of cosmetic violence, which is something that kind of bothers me and always has as a storytelling device.
Stories have focused on electronic espionage via satellite, an escape from prison with the help of a video game, and illegal access to computer systems by telephone. There seems to be only a fine line between current news reports and the imagination of the Whiz Kids writers.
Farley, in my entire life, I have never once wanted to play a video game.
I'm well aware of that, Quinn, but you're going to want to play this one because it'll show you exactly how Dave Kearns escaped from prison.
We kind of figured it out for him.
What goes on in this particular world, in other words, what really goes on in the world of computer technology these days, is far more interesting and far more exciting than anything that a jaded Hollywood producer or screenwriter is going to sit around in an office and think up.
Daguerre and his writers not only turned to the news for their story ideas, they also entered the world of technology to provide props.
It's like the world of technology is a garden in which all of these new products are sprouting constantly. And that being the case, why not get out there and harvest some of that and try and incorporate it into the show?
Sometimes high-tech products are included in a story after careful research, but often they find their way into a show almost by accident.
There's a device called a microbot arm, which is a little $1,500 robot arm that you can get for an Apple computer. And they donated one for us for the pilot, but we had no specific use for it until the day that we showed up to shoot a series of sequences in the set where that was supposed to take place. We're fundamentally based in the reality of this technology, even though the things we suggest that you do with the stuff is, you know, imaginary. But the point is it feels right because it's real close to the kinds of things that really are happening.
But when the real world of computers collides with the real world of filmmaking, it's not always as easy as it looks.
There's no question the most difficult aspect, and the one thing that we have, in the course of 9 months of working on it, finally succeeded at with a fair degree of regularity, is the ability to generate readable alphanumeric characters on your home television set. In other words, the inserts of the computer screens, and to be able to do it so that it comes out on the other end, no matter how small your TV may be, you can still read the letters. It seems deceptively simple. It has been unbelievably difficult, and it's more time-consuming and takes more man-hours than I would say any other aspect of the show.
If the Whiz Kids is to succeed in the competitive commercial television marketplace, Daguerre has to deal with a greater problem, an audience that's more than a little intimidated by computers.
One significant group in the country did not respond positively to the concept, which was men over 35. And at the time we thought to ourselves, okay, if you come to think of what the one demographic element of the population that is probably the least likely to be enchanted by teenagers on the one hand or computers on the other, unless they're already familiar with computers, it's probably professional men who, for whatever reason, may feel that their position is threatened by the new technology. They may have to learn to use a machine they didn't want to use, or they're going to have to work differently, or, you know, God help us, you're going to get replaced by a machine. And on the other hand, you know, the teenager who represents, you know, the next generation of people coming up after your job. I don't really see machines as being a big threat to our way of life. I find them, they're just machines, you know, you can always turn them off, and there's always ways around them, and there's a lot of fun to be had with them, either in, you know, using them on the one hand, or portraying them in their real form, which is broken most of the time, or doing the wrong things or stuff like that.
The success of the Whiz Kids will depend on the ratings and whether Daguerre and his staff will be able to soothe the troubled spirits of all those potential viewers who have yet to embrace the world of computers and teenage Whiz Kids in the New Tech Times.
Ratings are a factor in the success of a TV show, and so are critics. Some do little more than tell you the storyline in the next episode of your favorite soap. But others have become reflective about this force in our lives and have given their readers insight into the impact of television on all of us. One of the latter is critic Nick Coleman of the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, who's joined us here in the studio. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the New Tech Times.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
What's the state of television today? Do you like it?
No, not very much at all. It's sort of a difficult question to answer. It's like, have you stopped beating your wife? I don't like it. I don't hate it. It's a tool that people use, and it depends on the individual program.
Why is it the way it is? I mean, what is the effect of it in our society, do you think?
Television has no soul, and it has very little brain. It has mostly appetites. It churns out material and entertainment programs at an alarming rate, and it will just develops any idea, anything that comes along, it tries to exploit. And it'll take our attention for as long as it can get it, and when we drop our attention, it changes and moves on to something else.
Do you let your children watch a lot of television?
Well, we've had many arguments in my family about this, but no, not really. Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street and occasional Vikings game would be about the extent of the programming our children watch.
Why do so few critics feel about it the way you do?
Well, there's been a tradition in America and newspaper criticism of television has been as television is not very important to most newspapers. It's important to our readers, we recognize that, and so they generally assign someone to cover television. But until recent years, a lot of those TV critics have been reporters past their prime who are sent out to pasture and cover a beat that the editors don't consider very important. That's changing now, and I think editors recognize that television has become very important to millions of Americans, and now we're trying to figure out and understand what it's all about and how it does affect us.
Television is a part of the New Tech Times as a technology, but technology is now becoming more and more a subject for television programs as well. Right. Is the Whiz Kids the only example?
No, we have several shows. We have Automan on ABC, which involves a computer-generated hologram who also happens to be the world's greatest crime fighter since Superman. Riptide on NBC has a computer to help the boys who live on a yacht and solve crimes like Rockford did in the old Rockford Files. There are a number of other programs that have had these themes crop up from time to time.
What is this about? Why suddenly are we getting more technology in the shows?
I think it's for the same reason that we've had women in bathing suits in a lot of television programs. They're popular, and they have always been. Computers are just beginning to be popular now with the mass of Americans. It's becoming more commonplace for people to have home computers or to work with computers in the workplace. And the children, of course, are well acquainted with video games and video arcades. And the producers and the directors and the writers in Hollywood are never slow to pick up on any trend. But beyond that, I think that they also are among the professionals in this country who are becoming more and more familiar themselves with this technology, with home computers, and as they've gotten hooked at home and written more of their work on word processors, they've just generally, it's naturally that become a part of their interest, and they've injected into TV programming.
A writer friend of mine in Hollywood, Adam Rodman, sent me a couple articles he wrote out of the enthusiasm of his initial word processing program for writing scripts. What do you think is the impact of these technology themes on the audience?
Well, it's interesting. I think that in the old days, that computers and this technology has always been a subject of fascination for television programs, but in the 50s and 60s, computers were hidden away in caverns and mountains where mad scientists controlled them, or else they were in the seats of power where the good government officials ran them, and they weren't really anything that a normal, average person could have access to. And what I think we're seeing now is a reflection of the fact that computers are becoming more accessible to the average person, and we're seeing this mythologized in television programs where normal everyday people in every other respect go home to their basement workshop and sit at their home computer and solve crimes or do their homework or whatever happens to be the subject of the program.
But what do you think the shows are teaching us about our relationship to a computerized society?
I don't think that television teaches anything consciously or purposely. I think that it reflects something that's going on in the society, and that is that they have become demystified, computers have. They're no longer in those mountain caverns with the mad scientists. Maybe some of them are, but they're also in the general population, and people are working with them, and I think that these shows are telling us that computers are no longer good or evil, or they're not the extreme of either one. They're neutral instruments that anybody can use for whatever purpose, and it's the people who use them and the purposes that they put them to that are good or evil.
Nick Coleman, thank you for some insight into the new tech in television.
Thank you.
If you have story ideas or comments, send them to the New Tech Times, 821 University Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin, 53706. Or just call the source or CompuServe.
Most kids who are using computers aren't using them to make commercial network series. They're using them to learn programming, play games, do their homework. Occasionally, a youngster actually produces a useful piece of computer software, even a profitable computer program. Here's Dave Iverson's report.
Will Harvey, a 17-year-old high school student from Foster City, California. Will looks like the boy next door. That is, the boy next door who happens to be student body president, sing in the school choir, and play on the school basketball team. And just to fill in the extra hours, Will also developed his own software package called the Music Construction Set.
You can move things around and then make a scale if you wanted to, just by placing the notes on the screen. The whole idea of this is to be simple, so that someone who doesn't know anything about music can get into music and can experiment. And so he doesn't have to know what key to press on the piano. He just has to be able to move the little hand, pick up a note, and drop it on the screen. If he wants to make a chord, he just picks a note and sets it directly underneath or above.
Though Will sings in the school choir, there is something he can't do. He can't read music. Hence, the Music Construction Set, something that allows him to play back and hear the sheet music he brings home from school. Will has also been known to doctor a few familiar melodies.
So it's kind of like you have a chalkboard in front of you and a bunch of little pictures of notes, and you pick up the notes and you set them on the chalkboard, and then magically that chalkboard plays whatever's on it. If you don't like it, you just move something around or erase it with an eraser and redraw it.
Will produced the Music Construction Set for his own use, but it quickly won the acclaim of composers and music teachers. And Will isn't one to keep such a success to himself. At $40 a package, his product just might be enough to finance the Stanford education he plans in the future. In the meantime, Will has a few new plans in the offing.
Although I think this is good, I think it's going to, I think there's plenty of room for coming out with something a year from now, putting all my energies into it and coming out with something that's equally as exciting. I've got a few ideas for some games that I think, new ideas of games that would be a lot of fun for people to play.
Software writers are being promoted like superstars these days as a marketing technique. So we'll probably see more Will Harvey in the years ahead. His program is wonderful in its own way. But is it better for Will and the rest of us than learning how to read and write music or play it on an instrument? That's a question on many people's minds in these new tech times. What's left for us to do without machines? Physical exercise, right? Wrong. Here's Barry Stoner's report.
One of the biggest criticisms about all this electronic stuff that's filling our living rooms and our closets these days is that it keeps us from a more active life. Kids should be out playing ball instead of playing Pac-Man. Adults should be exercising rather than sitting in front of a computer terminal. Well, that's all changed now that physical fitness has entered the new tech times. Now you can play a video game and exercise all at the same time. In fact, with several new products out from a company called Exis, you have to exercise in order to play the game. At the Winter Consumer Electronics Show, we saw the Exerbike, designed to work with the Atari 2600 VCS. No matter what the weather is like outside, you can bike around your course by pedaling and maneuver with the touch of a few buttons. There's even a display on the screen of a speedometer and a clock to let you know how you're doing. And if you're not quick enough at the game, you'll smash into an oncoming car. Now, if you're not much of a biker, you might like the Jogger video game. When you run on this little pad, you move that little Pac-Man-like face around the track. The faster you run, the faster it moves. And you get points for passing the other little pacing figure on the screen. There's a slow track equal to a 10-minute mile, and for you more energetic joggers, there's a fast track equal to about a 7-minute mile. For all you chubby video game players, you need never feel guilty again about wasting time with a joystick. From Frogger to Jogger in one easy step.
Computerized exercise, music, TV shows, and stealing cable services to watch it all? Where will it end? I don't know. But after the show, I think I'll just leave Barry stomping his feet in front of the computer for exercise and take a walk with no electronics at all, down by the lake a few blocks from here. He'll give me a chance to feel the breeze in my face and look for signs of life in the woods. Care to join me? For the New Tech Times staff, I'm Nicholas Johnson.
The New Tech Times has been brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change, Wausau works. And by the collective voice of the consumer electronics industry, the CEG, the Consumer Electronics Group, Electronic Industries Association.
For a transcript of this program, send $3 to program number 119, The New Tech Times, 821 University Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin, 53706. Or you can now communicate electronically with the New Tech Times. Just call the source or CompuServe and select the New Tech Times online.